opportunity to do a personal reflection. And that reflection is going to have 2 questions in it. If you have an opportunity to just write for a moment, sit with your thoughts for a moment, what are 3 feelings that you have felt in the last 48 hours? So thinking about a wide variety of emotions. And what are some of the biggest challenges that you might be having in spaces with your children right now? So 3 feelings and biggest challenges. And so we're going to have a minute to do that reflection. If you want to take an opportunity and type some of those in the chat. What are 3 feelings that you've felt in the last 48 hours? And a challenge that you may be having with the child or children in your care. So I want to take an opportunity. Norma, if you see anything in the chat, or if someone would like to unmute themselves and share.
So some of these that are coming in, Kristin, are helpless, scared, confused, and challenges are trust and communication.
Yeah. Anyone else would like to share?
Overwhelming.
Mm.
Getting my son to do his homework.
Mm-hmm.
Keep focused, staying on task.
And we have time for one more share.
That we just keep repeating the same cycle over and over and never have a different type of experience to grow, or never use the next time to grow, but just to keep going over and over.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing. It is really difficult right now. And so our focus on this session is to build some awareness, both of what we may be going through from just observing and naming feelings, as well as understanding what our teens may be going through. We're going to explore encouragement with some interactive session or interactive activities. And we have an opportunity to adjust our frame. So in this moment, I want to work on this idea of another guiding force for SEL Chicago. It comes from the work of Adlerian psychology, this idea that humans, we are all seeking belonging and significance. And when we're not finding belonging and significance, we might act in some mistaken ways that aren't always socially useful. Someone mentioned in the chat about clear communication, meaning the challenge, the lack of it. So I found this yesterday. It's a cartoon by Liz Clemo. And just so you know, this cartoon is offered and it's cited, but it's not going to be in the handouts because I don't yet have permission to share it, and it's original work. So the cartoon says, little lizards or dinosaur, and the adult dinosaur says, "Do you need something?" You see the child taking the adult and putting the hand on his head and saying then, "Attention." And wouldn't it be great if all communication from our children was that clear? But if you can think about the behaviors that you brainstormed, maybe the challenging behaviors that you might be seeing from your children in your care right now, if we see those as communication, that's a different lens. So often when we think about behaviors, we think about if we could just make this behavior go away. But if we can put on our curiosity lenses, and when you are in the presence of some of those annoying, angry, challenging behaviors, change the frame ever so slightly to think, what is this child trying to communicate? And some of these behaviors that we may be seeing and hearing, if we think about the metaphor of an iceberg, some of the behaviors we may be seeing and hearing, and I think we heard some of them in the chat, right? There might be excessive screen time. Some children may swear. Some adults may swear too. You might be experiencing defiance or disrespect or directions that you're giving that you feel like you're being clear on and ignoring. Maybe you feel like your kids are complaining or sneaking or just upright refusal. Maybe they're fighting in amongst themselves. And I've heard of some families who are really having challenges. They've said pretty clear boundaries on social distancing, and some children are leaving. So if these are the things that are above the waterline, what are some of the things that might be below the waterline? The reasons behind the communication, how children are feeling. They may be feeling anxious, deep boredom. They might be feeling helpless. Might be really coming across, for example, when remote learning started, and suddenly if you have children who have more than one teacher, you've got more than one teacher putting things in at all different times into Google Classroom, and it's just lack of skills or lack of organization. The lack of skill of organization, you might feel disconnected or emotionally dysregulated. I'm thinking now about our 8th graders and our seniors and our athletes, right, who have had big rites of passage in children's lives of 8th grade graduations or proms or dances. So they might be having fear or grief of some of those experiences, worry, confusion, powerlessness. They might misunderstand because they've never experienced anything like this. And the worry about social status, especially for our adolescents, they are behaviorally and developmentally, they're starting to really think about what are my peers thinking? And so the worry about social status is really real. So all of these things, I've got a mentor in this work her name is Jody McVitie, and she talks about if we were to go out and try to get rid of this iceberg and just chip away at the top, we could chip away at some of these behaviors. But if we don't attend to or acknowledge some of the things underneath the waterline, the behaviors are not going to go away. So I want to think about, what if we started looking at these and putting on the lenses, the Pinkie Pie lenses, and we started looking at these behaviors as maybe attention seeking, but what if they're connection seeking? Because we as human beings, we all crave connection, and we end up settling for attention. And I'd like to pause for a minute. I don't have a slide for this reflection, but I'd like to pause for a minute and ask a couple questions. And so the question that I want to ask, and to pause for a minute or 30 seconds about reflection, is, what does this iceberg help you see about your kids? What does the metaphor of the iceberg help you see about the children in your care? And I don't have a countdown for 30 seconds, but I just want to wait for 30 seconds. And you can put your answers in the chat, or you can open up your microphone and share when you're ready. So the question is, what does this iceberg help you see? And whoever's ready to share can share.
So, Kristin, somebody commented that one of the things that they see is that there are many levels to his actions.
Yeah. And maybe more beneath the surface than we really realize in the moment. This webinar is not going to deeply talk about the brain science behind upset. That we're going to go deeply into in tomorrow's webinar. But I wanted to share a couple of thoughts and an aspect. And these are going to be in the handouts, and I'm going to tell you at the end where you're going to be able to find these handouts. But if we think about the big part of the brain, our cerebral cortex's essential question as it looks at the world is, what can I learn and how can I solve this problem? And so the tools of the cerebral cortex as we're looking through the world, and this is our children's brains as well as our adult brains as well. When we are feeling emotionally regulated, we've got creative wisdom, we have our executive functioning, we can problem solve, we can manage stress. But if you think about this brain as this cerebral cortex is the last part of the brain that gets the message, and it has to go through two other parts of the brain before it can do the thinking. There are two other important parts of the brain that the answer to the essential question has to be yes before the cortex can do its work. Those two parts of the brain are the brainstem, and if you think about it, it is the very, very first part of the brain. We are born with it fully intact. Its essential question is, am I safe? And if the answer that the brainstem feels is no, it sends the signal to the rest of the body with tools. There are 4 of them. They all begin with F: fight, flight, freeze, or faint. If we have safety intact, the next question is, this is the limbic system, our little blue part of the brain. And its essential question is, am I liked? Am I loved? Thinking about the adults around me, and then also thinking about my peers, and also, do I like and love myself? And if the answer to those questions are no, we also can get emotional dysregulation, name calling, blaming, shaming, defensiveness. I've seen in my own sphere of helping children right now, sometimes when one of my kids comes up against something that they don't understand in an assignment, they'll call the assignment stupid. They'll call maybe an adult who gave it to them a name. I'm not going to name that name because we're on a recorded line. But some of these defensiveness comes from a place of either not feeling safe or not feeling cared about. And all of these tools that we're going to talk about for the rest of our time together are all about relationship and how we can build relationship. So I'm carefully watching the time, and I see that I want to get to another experiential activity. So just to share kind of really briefly these guiding beliefs about how we're looking at the world, we believe at SEL Chicago that we're all doing the best we can with the skills that we have. We believe that our current skill level is based on our own attachment history, both our children's and ourselves, our trauma history and resilience, the developmental stage of the human being that's in front of us, and maybe developmental difference, and our own state of personal emotional regulation. How we look at the world is based on all of those things. Another lens that we look through is that learning new skills is always possible, and it's helpful if we have curiosity. We seek belonging and significance. We do the best in mutually respectful environments where we're encouraged, where mistakes are opportunities to learn and reflect and build skills. And another big thing about authoritative leadership, I'm going to define that next, is authoritative leadership helps us create solution-focused communities. It supports our resilience, and it increases our protective factors against toxic stress. What we're talking about in authoritative leadership is from parenting style. So parenting style that might be, and this is defined by Beaumont, a leadership style that might be distant and that might be not demanding, or where clears aren't met, might feel unresponsive, might feel absent to the child. An authoritative or a leadership style that is cold or not accepting of difference, but the demands are really, really high, is going to be felt as an authoritarian presence. Where we feel warmth and acceptance, but demands are either not clear, or they're really squishy, or they're not assertively put together to build accountability, that's going to feel permissive. But authoritative, the definition of this word and where we are playing here, is high demand along with warmth and support. And it's firm boundaries with encouragement. And that's the place that we want to focus this conversation on. I always offer this to have a conversation about what is, there we go, restorative practices. If you're on a local school council or a CIWP committee, you might have a school that's trying to move towards restorative practices. We're going towards that restorative practices where restorative is where we do things with people instead of doing things to people when they do something wrong, or doing things for people so that they're not learning skills. I also like to make sure that I acknowledge, and in this acknowledgement, this webinar is being recorded. I'm literally almost on the banks of the Chicago River. This is a place, and we are on the traditional lands of the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi tribes, and I want to honor their elders past and present. I also want to acknowledge my own personal privilege. I'm sheltering in place. I'm safety. I'm in economic privilege, and I'm also a white woman on the north side of Chicago. And so I really want to acknowledge the fact that this conscious parenting and positive parenting has been very much a white space over the years. And there are some amazingly powerful, authoritative leaders of color in the parenting space that I want to make sure we elevate. Conscious parenting time, parenting is political, Latinx parenting, and parenting decolonized. Unfortunately, none of these organizations are run in Chicago, but they all have webinars, they all have podcasts and online presences, and I'll put those in the notes to this. So let's play with a moment to pause and get into the feeling of a child. I'm going to read to you some phrases, and I'd like you to listen to them as though you were not necessarily your child, but you were the age of a teenager. I'd like you to pay attention to some thoughts and some feelings as you listen to, I'm going to be an adult communicating with you. I'm going to have relational power, and we're going to have an opportunity to reflect and share your thoughts and feelings as I read these to you. So getting settled into your seat and feeling like putting on your I'm a child hat. People are dying from this virus. You cannot go outside. Why do you have to be in your room all day long? I'm guessing you're really missing your friends right now. Why are you doing this to me? Don't talk to me that way. It sounds like you're really upset. I'm here when you're ready to talk about it. There's a lot to do, and I'd really love your help. Have you watched anything fun on TikTok or YouTube lately? Come out of your room. Can I come into your room and read a book so I can just be near you? So as you pause, our opportunity to reflect is to take a moment, and again, we'll have 60 seconds to write about this. What were you thinking and what were you feeling as the child? And what decisions might you have been making about yourself or about me? So the reflection, oops, I made a mistake on those questions. The reflection is, what were you thinking and feeling? And what were you deciding about yourself or about me? And we have 30 more seconds. Please feel free to put your thoughts into the chat if you'd like. And whoever is ready to share can share. You may have to remember to take yourself off mute. Norma, would you like to read some of the things that are coming across the chat?
Sure, let me read. Things that were heard were requests as opposed to demands. The tones of the voice decided my feelings. There was a comment, you need to talk to them in a more sensitive way instead of talking at them. And so depending on the parent comment, I either felt afraid, sad, or secure. And calm down, this is too much for me, was one of the feelings. And when you were kind, I felt that you were in control. In other words, I felt a sense of safety, that I was being cared for.
Thank you so much for being willing to share. So we were playing a little bit with this idea of a thermometer. Was what I was saying bringing you closer to me, or was what I was saying making you more distant? Sometimes when I've done an activity like this, people realize that, and we said this already in the chat, our tone makes so much of a difference. I could have said some of those, I'm going to put it in quotes, nice things, right? These things are connection, but I could have said it in a sharp tone, or I could have said it in a way that didn't invite more communication. So our tone and our body language says so much for that. Was there anything else that just came across in the chat before we move forward?
There was nothing, Kristin.
Okay, thank you so much. So the next, I'm offering some tools with this idea that sometimes when we have been upset or when we're not feeling like we are in our big cortex purple brain, sometimes it's hard for us to show up in a way that feels authoritative, that feels mutually respectful. And so we're going to have another opportunity to listen to the following statements. Again, we're going to listen to these as if we were a child. I'd like you to pay attention to your thoughts and feelings as you listen to me as the adult communicating with you. I'm going to read through some statements on one side, and then I'm going to read through some other statements. Go take a shower. Get off the phone. It's time for you to get onto Google Classroom. Email your teacher if you can't figure it out. Stop fighting with your brother. Clean up after yourself. I'm tired of doing all this by myself. Stop complaining. So pause. And here's another set. What could you do so that you felt cleaner? What was our agreement about screen time? What are your plans for getting your schoolwork completed? It's okay to ask for help. Who can we call so we can figure this out? How can you and your brother solve this problem? What was our agreement about how we care for our common space? What chore did you pick out from the list that we brainstormed together? How can we solve this problem respectfully? So, putting on our reflection hat, hopefully I'm hoping these questions come out correctly. Yes. So the questions are, in that first set as compared to the second set, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? And what might have you been deciding about me as the adult or yourself? So we'll be sharing in about 20 seconds. What were you feeling? What were you thinking? And what might have you been deciding? Maybe some of the things are coming over in the chat. And if you could read some of the things that are coming out, Norma?
As I'm hearing the different ways of these being said to the child, I'm reminded I have to get better in my communication of delivery.
If anyone else would also like to unmute themselves so that you can share, please feel free. We have time.
Hello, this is Bridget.
Hi, Bridget.
Harris. I think we have another Bridget on also. It's Bridget Harris. Hi there. I was just thinking the other comment that I made about too much, the one I did with explanation points with the emoji. I sent that out, and that's the same thing like the first one, the first statement that you gave or that you were saying as a parent. Mm-hmm. My son would have been like, "Oh, Mom, this is too much." So it's very like stressful. It would have been stressed and things, and so I have to, just like the other person had mentioned, have to work on my skills in communicating with my son, especially as a homeschooling teacher now officially. With the teachers, I'm on one end, they're on the other. I have to be patient and also watch what I say and how I say it and the tone that I use.
Thank you, Bridget.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We have time for one more share. Hello, you're on. Okay. So my takeaway from this, if we were in a online class and we were, if we were in a room together, I would ask the question, what were the difference between the two statements? So what were the difference? You can put it in the chat, or the first level of the statements was one thing, and the second statements were something else. And thank you very much for, I'm pausing because I want to make sure that someone else has the opportunity to answer.
So someone has shared tiredness, but I think that was in response to your earlier question.
Mm-hmm. And can you read it, Andrea's?
The first statements were commands, and the second statements were questions that put the response into the hands of the child.
So a tool to take away from this that is something I wanted to share is this idea of curiosity questions. And I'm going to go back. So curiosity questions, really putting the onus on the child. If we can pause, if we can be curious, if we can take a moment and ask a question, and it's a question that begins with what or with how, or tell me more about that, and actually really listen, we have the opportunity to break through some of the dysregulation that our children can have. As a tool to take away, I'd also like to help encourage us to build awareness about the number of times that we ask a question of why. And the reason we can avoid why, if I asked you a question to say, why did you do that? Sometimes what immediately happens is that we get defensive. And in fact, physiologically, the response in our brain ends up happening is we look outward for a reason and reflect or deflect rather than looking inward. So starting to put the questions in: how, what, where, when were you going to get that done today? Tell me more about that. It can be really helpful in building an approach that encourages communication versus discourages communication. The last opportunity for us, and this may be a real opportunity to have someone solve a problem with community help, is this community problem solving help. And it's called the Adults Helping Adults Problem Solving. We're going to do this in a short form. I often, if I'm working with a grade level team or I'm working with a whole bunch of parents in a live class, this becomes one of the ways that we have an opportunity to get community and collaborative problem solving help. This is going to require someone who's willing to be a volunteer, who might be willing to share a current, often recurring challenge. I will draw forth from that a headline and a bullet point version of the story. I'll ask you to choose a feeling set from the mistaken goal chart, and I'll have that in the next slide. And then we're going to, everyone else on the call are going to brainstorm some solutions that are kind and firm at the same time. They're mutually respectful to support the volunteer. So is anyone willing to, or would anyone like to have some community problem solving for solving a challenge?
I'm going to put Bridget on the spot only because she already shared in the chat. Earlier she said what you were saying was so true. Her daughter completely shuts down when she asks her to do something or why she did why she did what she did. Is that okay, Bridget?
Sure, it's fine.
And Bridget, I want you to know that what we'll do is we'll be really, really gentle, and we can also edit this part of the video so that if you're concerned at all about your child, right, we can edit this part of the video.
Absolutely.
So
I just need more clarity
okay.
as what you're doing here. I'm not clear.
So I'm going to ask the last time if you have a challenge with your daughter, and maybe it's when I ask my daughter to do something, she completely shuts down. I'm then going to ask you just a couple of bullet points about the last time it happened and how you feel and how you felt about it. And I'll also ask just enough so that you have some information. Hi, honey.
So give an example is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. A real life example. If you're having a challenge, we can help you solve it.
Okay, sure. So recently, like right before the grades came out, her teacher told me that she had quite a few missing assignments. So of course, I'm naturally upset because each day I'm, did you do your homework? Oh yeah, I did it. And okay, good. So to find out missing assignments, it's like, wait a minute, why is this? Why did you not do your assignments? So this is when she completely shuts down. It's like there's no answer because it's like, why didn't you do this? Why, so she didn't give an answer, and then I just like, okay, I'm just gonna wait till tomorrow to address it because I'm too mad right now. So overnight she had drew some pictures and I didn't notice, and my son pointed it out that morning. Did you see the pictures that Brianna drew? And I was like, no. And she showed pictures of some characters, some animals being sad and stating, it's hard to talk to mommy. So of course, as a mom, you feel bad because I'm like, I could see like if I kind of went off, I'm like, I walked away, so I didn't get to that point. So I felt bad because, talking to her, she was like, I find it hard to talk to you. And, so it was just very upsetting and frustrating.
So I'm going to pause you. And this particular problem, do you think it might happen again? You might ask your child if she's done her homework and she hasn't, and then she has some assignments that aren't turned in. Has it happened before?
You kind of froze. Can you repeat what you said?
Mm-hmm. So this particular problem, if we had to put a headline on it, my child, I found out my child didn't do her homework, and then she didn't want to talk about it. Could that be a headline?
Yes.
Okay. And in that moment that you found out that your child did not do her homework, were you feeling annoyed, irritated, worried, or guilty? Were you feeling angry, challenged, threatened, or defeated? Were you disappointed, disbelieving, disgusted, or hurt? Or did you feel despair, hopeless, helpless, or inadequate?
I would say the maroonish one, disappointing, disbelieving, disgusting, and hurt, because it's happened a couple times before. So it's like, why does this keep happening?
Okay. And so the mistaken goal chart helps us find some proactive solutions by looking at our feelings about the behavior. So if we're looking at the mistaken goal chart, it could be, and this is just a theory, that your child might feel revenge if you're feeling kind of disappointed. And if you're feeling that, they may feel their belief behind the behavior, I don't feel that I'll belong, so I'll hurt others as I feel hurt. I can't be liked or loved. Again, this is a theory, and this is the worldview. I do know that there's another student, and when sometimes I don't understand, or, oh, did you just hear that? I just outed myself as the student. Sometimes when I have felt as a student that I haven't understood something, or that the teacher didn't like me, I hurt others as I feel hurt, and sometimes that shows up as me not doing the work. So there's an example of that. How we can put on our Pinkie Pie glasses and change our lens about their behavior is to think about, they're telling us I'm hurting, validate my feelings. So everyone else who was listening, this is our job. We have 2 minutes. I'm probably going to say, looking at it, we have a minute and a half. These are some mutually respectful tools that are kind and firm at the same time to suggest. Also, if you can think of another mutually respectful tool that you might want to suggest. In I appreciate it. Can you hold on 1 second? Thanks. I'm so excited for you. Real life, everyone. So take another 40 seconds and we're going to then ask the participants to give Bridget some suggestions. All right. So does anyone have some suggestions?
Hi, hello everyone.
Hi. Is this Bridget?
No, this is LaShawn.
Hi, LaShawn.
Hi.
Sean.
Hi, I miss y'all guys.
So in the
You too.
I was trying to see how I can able to get on. So I've been on since like 15 minutes like that. I was doing another work, but I'm so glad I can able to participate. So what basically I do, I first listen to my child to see what I have to say. Then we come up with suggestion and how things could be better. Because I already know that is wrong. I already got the bad news already, or the wrong report, and they don't need to be like regenerated over again. That in both of me and my child ears is like coming to part between me and my child, how we can able to make this better, like some type of agreement. And after like with a reward, the reward is like for her, like if we able to find a time or a space or pin your homework or your assignment on the refrigerator, or make like a special bulletin board close to her bed, or we can able to find a spot how we can able to communicate about homework. This is what I basically do, or any type of assignment or anything she want to do, period, throughout the day or throughout the week, and come up like with stars or checks or drawing or something. Then I can able like to know basically what is going on in her life. So it's not only like saying it as a parent, but also like listening to the child and coming to a mutual agreement, and also make it be like visually. So I see it, she see it.
LaShawn, I'm interrupting, and I'm sorry because
Yeah.
we only have 6 more minutes on the call.
Mhm.
I love you. Mwah. So listening, focusing on solutions, making an agreement. Those are the three big tools that I heard. And then coming up with something to celebrate, something that a celebratory piece that is meaningful for her.
Yeah.
We have time for one more set of suggestions.
And we have some comments, some wonderful comments on the chat.
Okay.
Kristin, let me read some of them.
Mhm.
So Joni has suggested, welcome Joni, that Bridget have a one-on-one talk with her daughter to see how she can help her emotionally and physically. We have another comment that says, acknowledge the child's feelings. If she can't articulate them, then maybe you can help her identify what she might be feeling. Then we have Kelsey who said, connect before correct. Build connection, acknowledge any emotion she may be feeling, then try to see if you can get to the root. It may be that she doesn't know how to do the work or is feeling overwhelmed. She may need more support with that work. You two could then come up with agreements together for homework. That way she feels more ownership that this is the procedure for what will happen instead of her being told that this is what she will do.
Wonderful. So the last part of our adults helping adults problem solving steps is to ask the volunteer if she would choose a tool to try and commit for a time to report back to us about how it worked. The choices are one-on-one time, focus on solutions, acknowledge feelings, make agreements, celebrate, and connect before correct.
And Kelsey has also offered that perhaps a feelings wheel might be helpful.
And creating a feelings wheel. Bridget, is there something that you might be willing to try? And I just see that I like the feelings wheel, Kelsey. Yay. I can put a copy of the feelings wheel. Oh, go ahead, Bridget, please.
You were saying three things, because you kind of, well, four things. You summed up what LaShawn had said, and I missed one of them. You said listen.
Focus on solution.
Let me see. Listen, solution, and reward, but you said something before reward.
Make agreements.
Oh, agreements. Okay.
And I think I may have instead of saying rewards, I think I reworded that to be authoritative, to talk about choose a celebration when she's done that she wants to do. To do something to celebrate. Is there one that you're willing to try?
Okay,
sure. Is there one that you're willing to try, Bridget?
Yes, the one, the way LaShawn explained it, and then the way you summarize it, I think using those four things, that would be a big help.
Great.
Because I do the listening part because I try to get to the root of why she feels what she feels, but I'm not really good as trying to find a solution to figure it out. So it's like, it's still kind of like the why moment, so to actually maybe think out a solution and then come to an agreement, I think that would be more helpful, because just like the examples you were using, it seems like if you kind of put it more in the hands of the child, then that gets you to a better place, as opposed to you stating it.
Yeah.
And then it's still not working.
Well, you pretty much summed up exactly what I wanted to share at the end. We're coming to the end of our time, and I know Norma has to go. Which, Norma, when you go, does that mean the call has to end?
I can leave the call going. Okay. And I will just step away. But I do want to take this opportunity to thank everybody who participated, and to remind you that, as Kristin mentioned, you do have some privilege of being able to join these calls, but there are parents that cannot. So we ask that you help other parents, that you share the information that you have. I am almost certain that all of you that are on here are already parent leaders, and you have parents that are already reaching out to you. So I ask you to please let us know if there is other type of information that you think parents need. I'm going to include a copy or a link to our survey. So give us feedback. Was this helpful? Was this too long? Was it too short? Is there something else that we could be doing differently? Because we are just starting this, and we are starting with a great big heart of wanting to support all of you wonderful heroes. I mentioned in another call that I think that we honor essential workers. I really think that parents are essential workers. The work that they are doing, the additional burden that they are carrying is wonderful. The other thing is that there's always a fear that our children are not going to they're going to lose a year of learning, but they are learning. They are learning, and you may not be content experts, but you are teaching them so many things. And that is extremely valuable to keep their brains flexible and wondering and curious are valuable, valuable things.
And to also support what you just said, one of the things that they are learning is when they come to us with a problem and we have the opportunity to connect with them so that we can help them find a solution, we actually teach them problem-solving skills. And those problem-solving skills will follow them throughout the rest of their life, as will our opportunity to be right there with them. I want to encourage you, because Norma, I know that you have to go, and I don't know what has to happen with the recording, but I'm assuming that you need to do that too. Go ahead.
I am going to pause the recording because we're at the end of our presentation, but people can continue to ask questions. And I am just going to step away from the screen, but the session will be open as long as you need it to be.
Super. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Norma, thank you very much for making this possible.
My pleasure. Thank you to all you wonderful, wonderful parents.
I wanted to end